and welcome back to FiddleUP. I'm Emerald Ray, and today we're going to be talking about stage fright. Now, this can be a very unpleasant and difficult thing to deal with for a lot of people. So I want to make an entire video breaking down what this is and what to do about it. So stage fright afflicts most people a little bit. Some people don't have it. Those people are unicorns. Those people may have some reason why that just never bothers them. Maybe they love performing so much that it just never touches their life in any way. But those people are extremely rare. Most people are going to get a little bit of it in certain situations, and in some situations more than others, and we're going to talk about what that is. And then some people, it's going to be so crippling, it totally sabotages their entire performance life. So that can be for a variety of different reasons. So why do we experience stage fright? First of all, why does that happen? And I think it has to do with, certain experiences, but there's two kind of main reasons to why you're going to feel like you're in a pressure cooker while you're in different situations. So the first thing to remember is that when people are paying attention to you, not just you talking, but, maybe talking. Sometimes, public speaking is very difficult for people, but when you're playing music, when people are focused on you, they are focusing energy on you, and that energy is coming towards you. So when you're sitting in a room full of people and they're all looking at you, all of that energy is coming towards you. And this is something that's really important to acknowledge, because if you're not open to that energy coming towards you, it's going to feel like a barrage. It's going to feel like this fire hose of energy. And if you're not aware of it, it's going to feel like all of that is happening inside you. And that's actually not what's happening. No, I'm not like an energy work expert here, but I will tell you from my long career of performing that, being in certain situations where people are not focused on you and then suddenly they're looking at you, it's like the energy is completely different. It's kind of like when, you're sitting somewhere and you're doing something and, just kind of minding your own business, and suddenly you feel like somebody's looking at you. And then you turn around in their direction, and yeah, there is somebody staring right at you. You had that feeling because you could feel their energy, penetrating your person. It's like, there's just things that, are hard to quantify in real life, that you would be able to sense that. But it's totally true. The energy is really important to acknowledge. So there are going to be situations where you're playing music and people aren't paying that much of attention to you. Maybe you're playing, a session in a bar or something like that, and most people are kind of just only 25% at the most paying attention to what you're doing. You're kind of, you're a side dish. You're just, you're just playing in the corner, and they're doing mostly focused on the food that they're eating or having a conversation with somebody that they're there. So you're not getting much energy flow from that person. If you're sitting and playing a concert and 100 people are sitting there looking at you and you can hear a pin drop, you're going to be getting all of that focused attention right on you. And that's going to feel very intense. And so, there's high pressure and low pressure situations. So there's going to be people who can play a session, love playing sessions, love sitting in the corner of a pub where people are not paying attention. Or maybe they love doing weddings and events and things like that, where people are not really paying attention to them so much. But if they got up on stage and everybody was paying attention to them, they're just like, have a meltdown. So, and, there are very, very famous people who have struggled with stage fright. And I'm talking about big, giant pop stars, who are like throwing up before the gig, every single gig, because it's just too much. They don't know what to do with all of that 70,000 people's amount of energy coming towards you. And a lot of times those people quit. Like, it's really sad. If you don't figure out how to deal with that properly, your career is in trouble. So what you want to do is, if you're having, suss out whether you're having an anxiety attack, during a, if probably not having it in a low stress, low pressure environment. You're probably having it when it's high pressure. And the most high pressure gig I think you can possibly probably do is a competition of some sort. If you're in a fiddle competition and you not only have a whole audience sitting there looking at you, you have somebody who's like a legend in the business, sitting there critiquing every little bow stroke. That I just can't think of any gig that I've ever done that has been more high pressure than that. So my personal story was, my parents had a band when I was growing up, and I just grew up on stage. And the only time that I ever really experienced stage fright to a level that it was a problem was in fiddle competitions, because I was so comfortable on stage. So I can personally tell you that was a big learning curve for me, and I had to get over it because I had to go win these competitions. It's like, it was like a thorn in my side. I had to get through it. So, just suss out, in terms of the high pressure, low pressure, where's your personal threshold for all that? So there are a number of reasons why stage fright happens on top of all that. Just, knowing that the energy is coming at you, knowing that there's high pressure and low pressure, situations just in general. But you may, on top of that, have had a bad experience where, you were a kid and something, you were doing a piano recital and you walked on stage and tripped and fell and hit your head and were really embarrassed, or, you might have something may have gone terribly wrong, especially when you're a child and you don't really have a way to suss out that it's not you. This just happens to everyone, or could happen to anyone. You might have had an experience that is just coming back to haunt you later in life, where, you might have had a teacher that, scared you to death, about a performance, or, it's like, just wasn't very supportive, or, something bad happened. And along those lines, you also may have had somebody in your life, especially early on in those formative years, who flat out told you that you were no good at something. And I think this is probably, honestly, the biggest reason for people to have stage fright is they really got honestly discouraged by either a parent, a teacher, a sibling, somebody who was really a part of their life, who just said, you know what, you can't do that. And you believed them as children do. Or even as an adult, maybe you had, somebody in your life that was telling you were no good at something. And, because you had heard that before, it made sense at the time. So in that situation, your poor little body is getting into these situations going, but we can't do this. But why are you doing this? We can't do this. You have been told that you can't do this. On and on and on from there. So that's when the bad voices come in and all of that kind of thing. So you really want to sit there and have a think about why is this happening to me? On top of the fact that this is a high pressure situation potentially, why is this happening specifically? What's the story here? On top of those things, it could not be that you had a bad experience. It could not be that anybody specifically important to you told you that, you were terrible at something. It could be that you just have a shy personality. It could be that just like being in front of tons of people is not your jam. And that's totally fine. And just because you have a shy personality doesn't mean you can't talk yourself out of it. If it's just If it's just kind of a personality thing where you tend to shrink away from situations that are a lot of pressure, that's probably easier to talk yourself out of, to be totally honest, than like, you know, my dad never thought I was good at anything. That's a lot of baggage right there. So it's probably easier if it's just a personality thing, for you to be able to talk yourself out of it, or just find a new, just recognize that about yourself and go, okay, I struggle a little bit with this and I'm just going to work on it. That's going to be, that's not too hard. I just need to practice this. So in terms of, building your confidence with these things, it's one of those things that, you just have to work on your general confidence. If you struggle with stage fright, you need to perform more, not less. Like, you actually need to practice this, and you need to figure out why it's happening, and you need to break down, exactly what is happening and why, and just break it all into pieces and solve all those problems and move along. So I have a video on how to build your confidence. And that's in the pro course. I would highly recommend you go in and watch that and check it out. And I talk about how to sort of create a persona. If you've got that shy personality, or you've got some, things that happened to you in the past year, you're gonna start fresh. You're gonna create this new you that's going to step into this role that you're trying to you're trying to create here. Who is this artist version of me that I'm going to step into? So I would go back and watch that video on confidence. I have a lot of things to say about that. But what is exactly happening when you are experiencing stage fright is your body is going into fight or flight mode. And, you may know that may be pretty obvious, but there's ways that you can switch yourself out of fight or flight mode. Fight or flight is, just a mechanism that happens in your body, and it's like an on and off switch. You can actually turn it on and off, and that's going to take some practice as well. So you're going to have to experiment with what techniques work for you. Maybe it's deep breathing before you go on stage. That works for a lot of people, especially singers, to just calm down and relax. Recognize that the anxiety that's happening has nothing to do with, the situation that's happening, and just get into the habit of calming your physical body down, and understand, just having some anxiety, just gotta, work on lowering all of that kind of extra anxiety energy before you go on stage, before you step into the situation. A lot of people like to use visualization techniques. So, and this could work both ways. This could be, for example, when I was doing fiddle competitions as a teenager, and I was suddenly experiencing shaky bow. My knees were shaking, everything was shaking, and I was like, what's going on? So I had to practice. Not only did I have to practice, when I was in my bedroom by myself practicing all my, stuff, I would visualize the audience in front of me. I would visualize, because I had experienced it before. I could visualize all that energy coming towards me. I could visualize the terror of the very experienced fiddle player next to me, to, picking apart all of my ornamentation. I could just visualize that situation. And then also, when I got into the fiddle competition, I could just close my eyes and imagine I was in my bedroom, So visualization works for some people. There's all kinds of goofy stuff too that people do, like imagining the audience with silly hats on or something like that, to kind of distract themselves from, whatever's going on. You can kind of dig into that. But visualization really helps as well with building your confidence. But I think, honestly, the most important thing to remember, and if you take nothing away from this entire video, I want you to remember this, and I probably should have just said this at the beginning. This is kind of like the whole thing here. The audience is your friend. They really are. And that's so easy to forget. It's really easy to forget. Especially when you're in a high pressure situation especially if you've had a bad experience, especially if you've had somebody tell you you couldn't do anything. The audience is there to support you. They have come to see you in whatever scenario. They have come to see you and they want you to do well. And for some reason, this is just so easy to forget when you get into that anxiety mode. But I think the best way that I have found over the years to handle this is just to really deeply understand that these people want you to succeed. Even if you're in that high stress environment, like a fiddle competition, where you have a whole audience watching you, you have all of your competitors watching you, all your competitors' moms watching you as well, who also, maybe they're the only people I think who would want you to not succeed for any reason. The judge wants you to do well. You know what I mean? If you're playing a gig in a concert, you know, these people have come to see you. They want you to do well. They want you to feel good about your performance. If you're at a festival, they want you to be having just as much of a good time as they are. So they want you to succeed. They are rooting for you. They are your cheerleaders. So they are not your enemy. They're not anything to be afraid of at all. Just at all. There's nobody sitting there watching you who you should feel like that is your enemy. I have had precious few experiences, let me tell you. In all of my years, I have had a few experiences where I felt, yeah, this person is out for my blood. But that's been so rare. I can't even tell you. And, you know, whatever they're dealing with, if they're sending you some bad energy, that is 100% their stuff. It's just, they have some stuff to deal with that has absolutely nothing to do with you. So if you can just cultivate that relationship with your audience of, these are my friends, these are my family, these are my people that are supporting me, then anything that happens in the performance is gonna feel like nothing. I think at this point in my career, if I walked on stage and totally tripped and fell, you know, it would not flap me, because I have just really cultivated that idea that the audience is there to support me so much that I just kind of feel like I'm walking on a cloud on stage. And at this point in my life, on stage is my favorite place to be, honestly. It's really like, that is my happy place. It really is, and it really has been since I was really young as well. So I really cultivated that space. And being a professional musician, it's really important to just have that space that you take up behind the microphone. Just be like, this is why I did all this. This is why I wrote all those emails. This is why I drove all those miles. This is why I put up with all this, that, and the other thing. This is why I did all that work. This is why I did all that practicing. Because now I get up and, you know, stand at this microphone, and I get to do my thing. And that feels really, really awesome. So I hope that all of this is very helpful to you. Please let me know if you have any more questions about this, and I will do my best to answer all of your questions, and I will see you in the next video.